The locker room at Lincoln Heights High buzzed with the sharp echo of slamming metal doors and the chatter of girls fresh off gym class. Chloe Bennett slipped in quietly, her sneakers silent on the tiled floor, her black hoodie zipped up to her chin. At 16, she was the new girl, her dark eyes scanning the chaos, her short braids tucked under a cap. She'd only been at the school a week, but she already knew to keep her head down. She'd barely opened her locker when a shadow fell over her. Olivia Harper stood there, her blonde ponytail swinging, her cheerleading uniform crisp and bright. At her side were her crew, Lauren Mitchell with her phone out, Emily Carter twirling a bottle of blue hair dye, and Sophie Evans smirking with her arms crossed. The air shifted, the other girls scattering like leaves in a storm, leaving Chloe alone in the center of their circle. "New girl thinks she's invisible," Olivia said, her voice loud, cutting through the room. She snatched Chloe's cap, tossing it to the floor. "But that hair? Too plain for Lincoln Heights." She nodded to Emily, who popped the dye bottle open, the sharp chemical smell filling the space. Chloe stepped back, her heart pounding, but Lauren blocked her path, giggling as she filmed. "Please," Chloe whispered, her voice small, her hands trembling. "I just want to get my stuff." "Please?" Olivia mocked, grabbing Chloe's shoulders. "Hold her!" she snapped, and Sophie pinned Chloe's arms, her grip tight. Emily stepped forward, pouring the dye over Chloe's braids, the blue liquid dripping down her neck, staining her hoodie. Olivia laughed, a sharp, cruel sound, as she smeared it deeper into Chloe's hair. "Now you look like you belong." On the reject list. The room spun, the dye cold against Chloe's scalp, her braids clumped and ruined. Lauren zoomed in, narrating, "Check out the loser's makeover." Chloe's lip quivered, her eyes locked on the puddle forming at her feet, but something flickered in her gaze. Something hard, something alive. "Let's go, girls," Olivia said, tossing the empty bottle at Chloe's sneakers. "She's not worth our time." They strutted out, their laughter bouncing off the walls, leaving Chloe soaked and shaking. The last girl out flipped off the lights, plunging the room into shadow. Chloe stood still, the silence heavy, her breath steadying. She touched her sticky, blue-streaked hair, the mess of 3 years' growth now a battle scar. Her hands balled into fists, her whisper cutting the dark. "You'll regret this." She pulled out her phone, her fingers steady as she dialed. "Mom," she said, her voice low but firm. "They went too far." Outside, Olivia high-fived her crew, thinking she'd crushed another nobody. She didn't know Chloe's call had just lit the fuse to her downfall. The fluorescent lights of Lincoln Heights High buzzed overhead as Chloe Bennett shuffled through the crowded hallway, her sneakers scuffing the linoleum floor. It was her 5th day at the school, and the blue dye still clung to her braids, a patchy mess she'd tried to scrub out the night before. Her black hoodie hung loose over her shoulders, the stains from yesterday's locker room attack faint but stubborn. At 16, Chloe had mastered the art of fading into the background. Head down, books clutched tight, steps quick and quiet. She'd learned it through 3 school moves in 4 years, each one tied to her mom's military postings. That morning, she'd slipped into the building early, dodging the whispers and stares. The hallways were a maze of lockers painted in the school's red and gold colors, plastered with posters for the cheer squad and football games. Lincoln Heights wasn't just a school. It was a kingdom, ruled by kids whose parents owned half the town. Chloe had sized it up fast. Social status here wasn't earned, it was inherited. She rounded a corner, aiming for her locker, when a shoulder slammed into her, sending her books tumbling. "Oops," Olivia Harper said, her voice dripping with fake surprise. Her blonde ponytail bounced as she spun around, her cheer uniform pristine under the morning light. Lauren Mitchell snickered beside her, phone already out, while Emily Carter and Sophie Evans flanked them, their smirks sharp as knives. The hallway slowed, kids parting like water around a shark, their eyes darting between Chloe and the pack. Guess the new girl's still clumsy, Olivia added, kicking Chloe's chemistry textbook further down the floor. Chloe knelt to gather her things, her jaw tight, her fingers steady. She didn't look up, didn't speak, just collected her books and stood, her dark eyes flickering with something Olivia missed, a spark, quick and controlled, gone in a blink. Better watch where you're going, Olivia called as the bell rang, strutting off with her crew, their laughter echoing like a warning bell. Chloe adjusted her hoodie and headed to class, her mind already elsewhere. She'd faced worse than this, taunts in Texas about her mom's buzz cut, shoves in Georgia for being the army brat, but Lincoln Heights felt different. The stakes were higher, the players meaner. Olivia wasn't just a bully, she was the queen, daughter of a tech CEO whose donations funded the school's new gym. Her crew had their own pedigrees. Lauren's dad owned a car dealership. Emily's mom was a councilwoman. Sophie's uncle ran the local bank. Together, they were untouchable, a fact Chloe clocked the second she'd walked through the doors. That evening, in the small rental house she shared with her mom, Chloe stood in the garage, the air thick with the hum of a ventilation fan. The space was her sanctuary, shelves lined with beakers and vials, a workbench cluttered with notebooks, a mini fridge humming in the corner. She'd turned it into a lab 2 years ago, a gift from her mom after a tough move. Tracy Bennett, a staff sergeant with 18 years in the Army, had taught Chloe more than how to pack a duffel bag. She'd passed down a love for science, sparked by late nights mixing solutions in base kitchens. Chloe pulled off her hoodie, revealing a plain gray tee and the faint muscle in her arms, earned from years of lifting her mom's old gear. She tied her stained braids back, the blue streaks catching the light, and opened a notebook labeled Reactions. Inside were pages of formulas, sketches of molecular chains, notes on pH shifts, all in her neat, slanted handwriting. She wasn't just good at chemistry, she was exceptional, a regional science fair winner who'd once turned a teacher's hair green by accident. Tracy appeared at the garage door, her camouflage jacket slung over one shoulder, her short hair still damp from a shower. At 40, she carried the quiet strength of someone who'd stared down drill sergeants and desert storms. "Rough day?" she asked, her voice deep, her eyes catching the blue in Chloe's hair. "They got creative," Chloe said, tapping a vial of clear liquid on the bench. "Dyed me blue in the locker room. Thought it'd break me." Tracy's jaw tightened, her hand resting on the doorframe. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Chloe said, her tone even. "Just mad." She flipped a page in her notebook, revealing a sketch of a dye molecule she'd been analyzing. "They don't know who they're messing with." Tracy stepped inside, peering at the setup. "You promised me, Chloe. No trouble at this school. We're here 2 years. Then I'm out of the Army. I want you to have a normal shot at this." "I know," Chloe said, meeting her mom's gaze. "I've been good. Kept my head down. Played dumb in gym. Let them push me around." She paused, her fingers tracing the vial. "But yesterday crossed a line." Tracy sighed, pulling up a stool. "I taught you to defend yourself. Physically, mentally. That judo I showed you at 9, the chemistry we messed with at 12. It's for protection, not payback." "I'm not fighting," Chloe said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Not with fists anyway." She held up the vial, the liquid catching the light. "This is my weapon now." Tracy raised an eyebrow, half proud, half wary. "What's the plan?" "Not sure yet," Chloe said, setting the vial down. But Olivia Harper's about to learn that actions have consequences. She turned to the workbench, her shoulders squaring, her quiet demeanor shedding like a second skin. In this garage, she wasn't the timid new girl. She was a scientist, a strategist, a force waiting to strike. The bell rang at Lincoln Heights High, a shrill call that sent students spilling into the hallways like ants from a kick nest. Chloe Bennett adjusted her hoodie, the blue dye in her braids now faded to a dull grayish streak, a reminder of the locker room ambush 3 days ago. She kept her head low, weaving through the crowd, her books pressed tight to her chest. The school was a battlefield, and she'd learned fast that survival meant blending in, at least for now. She reached her locker, its red paint chipped at the edges, and popped it open. A crumpled note fluttered out, landing at her feet. She unfolded it, her dark eyes narrowing at the scrawled words, "Blue freak doesn't belong." The handwriting was sloppy, but the message was sharp, a jab she'd expected since Olivia Harper had marked her as prey. She stuffed the note into her pocket, her jaw tightening, and swapped her books for chemistry class. Footsteps echoed behind her, deliberate and loud. Chloe didn't need to turn to know who it was. Olivia's presence was a storm you felt before it hit. "Still here, new girl?" Olivia's voice cut through the hallway chatter, smooth and venomous. She leaned against a locker, her cheer uniform hugging her frame, her blonde ponytail gleaming under the lights. Lauren Mitchell flanked her, scrolling her phone, while Emily Carter twirled a pen like a baton, and Sophie Evans cracked her knuckles, her smirk a silent threat. Chloe closed her locker, keeping her movements slow, her face blank. "Just trying to get to class," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Class?" Olivia laughed, a sound that turned heads. "You think you're one of us?" She stepped closer, her sneakers squeaking on the floor, her blue eyes glinting with malice. "Look at you, hoodie, sneakers, that messed up hair. This isn't a charity school." She flicked a strand of Chloe's dyed braids, her fingers lingering just long enough to make it personal. The hallway hushed, kids slowing to watch, some whispering, others grinning. Chloe's hands twitched, her nails digging into her palms, but she kept her eyes on the floor. Lauren lifted her phone, the camera flashing as she snapped a photo. "Perfect for the group chat," she said, giggling. Caption, "Trash stays trash." Emily snorted, and Sophie stepped forward, nudging Chloe's shoulder hard enough to make her stumble. "Move faster next time," Sophie said, her voice low, her grin wide. "Or we'll help you." Olivia tilted her head, her smile sharp. "See you around, blue freak." The group sauntered off, their laughter bouncing off the lockers, leaving Chloe alone in a sea of staring faces. She adjusted her books, her breathing even, her mind logging every word, every shove. She wasn't breaking, not yet. By lunch, Olivia's reign was impossible to ignore. The cafeteria was her throne room, a sprawling space of long tables and buzzing chatter. At the center sat her crew, their trays pushed aside to make room for a ridiculous setup. Chairs stacked and draped with jackets to mimic a royal court. Freshmen scurried over, arranging it daily, their hands shaking as they sought favor or safety. Olivia lounged at the head, her legs crossed, her phone propped up as she scrolled through comments on Lauren's latest post. Chloe sat at a corner table, her tray untouched, her eyes scanning the room. She'd picked the spot on day one, far enough to avoid notice, close enough to watch. Olivia ruled with an iron grip, her word law, her crew enforcers. Lauren, the social media star, had 150,000 followers, her posts a shrine to their perfect lives. Emily, daughter of a councilwoman, got teachers to look the other way. Sophie, with her banker. Uncle flexed muscle when charm wasn't enough. And Olivia, her dad's tech empire and her mom's school board seat made her untouchable. A kid named Ryan, a skinny sophomore with glasses, approached their table, his tray wobbling. "Can I sit here?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Olivia didn't look up. "Seats are for winners," she said, waving him off. Sophie stood, knocking his tray to the floor, applesauce splattering across his sneakers. The room laughed, a wave of sound that drowned Ryan's retreat. Chloe's fork paused mid-air, her stomach twisting, but she kept her face blank. The next day, in gym class, Chloe played her part to perfection. Coach Miller blew the whistle, and the girls lined up for dodgeball. Chloe fumbled every throw, her arms flailing like a puppet with cut strings. When a ball sailed her way, she tripped, landing hard on the mat, her hoodie tangling around her. The class snickered, Olivia's voice rising above it. "Nice moves, Klutz!" she called from the sidelines, her crew doubling over. Chloe pushed herself up, her cheeks flushed, her eyes down, but her breathing stayed calm, her clumsiness a mask she'd worn too long to slip. After school, the taunts followed her. She walked past the football field, her backpack heavy, when Emily's voice rang out. "Hey, blue freak!" A water balloon sailed from the bleachers, bursting against Chloe's shoulder, soaking her hoodie. Lauren's camera caught it all, Sophie's laugh cutting through the air. Chloe kept walking, water dripping down her arm, her steps steady. She didn't flinch, didn't turn, just filed it away, another piece of the puzzle. For 2 weeks, the pressure built. Olivia's group owned the school. Teachers ignored their stunts. Custodians cleaned their messes. Even Principal Davis smiled nervously when Olivia passed. Chloe saw it all. The freshmen who paid for protection with lunch money, the quiet kids who transferred after crossing Olivia's path. She heard whispers about a girl named Hannah, driven out last year by rumors so vicious her family moved states. Ethan, a junior, had warned her in the library one day, his voice low. "They're a machine," he'd said, pushing up his glasses. "No one stops them, not when Olivia's mom runs the board." Friday came, and the breaking point hit. Chloe stepped into the girls' locker room after gym, the air thick with sweat and perfume. She'd avoided it since the dye incident, but Coach Miller had insisted on showers. She was alone, or so she thought, until the door slammed shut. Olivia strode in, her crew behind her, a plastic bottle of blue dye in her hand. "Round 2, she said, her smile cold. "You didn't learn last time." Sophie grabbed Chloe's arms, pinning her against the lockers, the metal cold through her shirt. Emily dumped the dye, the liquid splashing across Chloe's braids, her neck, her face. Lauren filmed, zooming in as Chloe's hoodie darkened, the blue streaking down her cheeks like tears. "Smile for the camera," Olivia said, stepping close, her breath hot. "You're nothing here. Get that through your head." They left her there, the dye pooling on the tiles, their laughter fading down the hall. Chloe slid to the floor, her hands shaking, not with fear, but with something else. She wiped her face, the blue smearing across her fingers, and stood, her reflection staring back from a cracked mirror. The timid new girl was gone. Her eyes burned, her posture shifted, her voice a whisper only she could hear. "Enough." She pulled her phone from her pocket, her fingers steady despite the mess. "Mom," she said when Tracy picked up, her tone flat but resolute. "They did it again. I'm done playing nice." Tracy's voice crackled through, firm but calm. "You sure about this, Chloe?" "Yeah," Chloe said, touching her dripping braids. "They've had their fun. Now it's my turn." She hung up, her mind racing, her lab waiting. Olivia thought she'd won. thought Chloe was broken. She didn't know the quiet girl she'd painted blue was about to paint her world in ways she'd never forget. The locker room door clicked shut behind Olivia Harper and her crew, their laughter fading into the hum of Lincoln Heights High. Chloe Bennett sat on the cold tile floor, her back against the lockers, blue dye dripping from her braids onto her soaked hoodie. The chemical stink burned her nose, the wet fabric clinging to her skin, her sneakers squelching in a puddle of the stuff. She'd taken it for 2 weeks. Shoves, taunts, water balloons. But this, the second dye attack, was a line crossed twice. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from a fire she'd kept banked too long. She stood, slow and deliberate, the mirror across the room reflecting a mess of blue streaks and a face that didn't match the timid girl she played. Her dark eyes burned, her jaw set hard, her braids a tangled ruin of Olivia's cruelty. She wiped her cheek, smearing the dye across her fingers, and clenched her fist. "Enough," she said, her voice low, a promise to herself. She yanked her phone from her pocket, the screen lighting up her stained hands as she dialed. "Mom," she said when Tracy picked up, her tone flat but sharp, like a blade being unsheathed. "They did it again. Dumped dye on me in the locker room." Tracy's voice came through, steady but edged with concern. "You hurt?" "No," Chloe said, pacing now, her sneakers leaving wet prints. "Just done. I tried your way. Kept quiet, took it, stayed out of trouble." "But they're not stopping." There was a pause, the sound of Tracy shifting on the other end, probably in her office at the base. "You promised me, Chloe," she said, her words heavy. "No fights, no scenes. We're almost through this posting." "I know," Chloe said, stopping to stare at her reflection, the blue dripping down her neck like war paint. "And I haven't fought. Not once. But I'm not a punching bag either." She touched her braids, the mess of 3 years' growth, now a battleground. "They think I'm nothing. I'm about to show them I'm not." Tracy sighed, a sound Chloe knew too well, pride warring with worry. "What's the plan?" "Not sure yet," Chloe said, her mind already spinning, formulas flashing behind her eyes. "But it's going to be big, and they won't see it coming." She hung up, her breath steadying, her decision made. The quiet new girl was dead. The scientist was awake. She left the locker room, dye still dripping, and walked home through the crisp Chicago evening, her hoodie leaving a faint trail of blue on the sidewalk. Kids from school pointed, some laughed, but she didn't flinch, just kept moving, her head up for the first time in weeks. At home, she bypassed the kitchen, heading straight for the garage lab. The door creaked open, the familiar hum of the fan greeting her like an old friend. She flicked on the lights, the shelves of vials and beakers glinting, her workbench a chaos of potential. Chloe peeled off her hoodie, tossing it onto a stool, and tied her stained braids back. She grabbed a pair of goggles and gloves, her movements sharp, precise. The dye bottle Olivia had tossed was in her backpack, empty now, but she'd saved it, a trophy of their mistake. She set it on the bench, studying the label. Cheap, over-the-counter stuff, ammonia heavy, easy to break down. She smirked, pulling her notebook labeled "Reactions" from the shelf. Pages flipped under her fingers, landing on a formula she'd toyed with last year, a compound that reacted with skin oils and water to create a temporary, vivid color shift. Harmless, but unforgettable. Her phone buzzed, a text from Tracy. "Be smart, no permanent damage." Chloe typed back, "Promise," then turned to her workbench. She mixed a test batch, clear liquid in a beaker, a pinch of powder, a drop of catalyst. It shimmered, then settled, ready to strike when the time was right. She needed a target, a moment, something public. Olivia loved the spotlight. Chloe would use it against her. Saturday morning, Chloe sat on her bed, her laptop open, the ruined hoodie draped over a chair. She'd scrubbed her hair the night before, the blue fading to a faint tint. But the damage was done, her braids uneven, some strands brittle. Tracy had offered to take her to a salon, but Chloe shook her head. "It's a badge now," she'd said, her voice firm. "They started this. I'm finishing it." She scrolled through Instagram, Olivia's profile a goldmine of arrogance. Photos of her in her cheer uniform, captions like "Queen of Lincoln," her crew tagged in every shot. Chloe paused on a post from last night, a flyer for the cheer squad's big halftime performance at next week's football game. "Lighting up the field," it read, with a winking emoji. The comments were a flood of hype, hundreds of likes, kids begging for invites to the after-party at Olivia's mansion. Chloe's lips curled into a slow smile. The game was Friday, 5 days away. Perfect. She spent the weekend in the lab, refining her compound. Sunday afternoon, Tracy poked her head in, her camouflage jacket slung over her arm. "You've been at it for hours," she said, eyeing the beakers bubbling on a hot plate. "What's cooking?" "Justice," Chloe said, adjusting a burner. She held up a vial, the liquid inside clear as water. "This hits skin oils and water, like sweat or a splash, and turns bright blue. Temporary, washes out in a week, no harm done." Tracy raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. "Blue like they dyed you?" "Exactly," Chloe said, her grin sharp. "They want to mark me? I'll mark them back, where everyone can see." Tracy chuckled, a rare sound, but her eyes stayed serious. "You've got my brain, kid. Just don't get caught." "Won't," Chloe said, capping the vial. "They'll do it to themselves." She turned back to her laptop, pulling up the cheer squad's practice schedule from the school website. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, open sessions in the gym. She'd seen Olivia strut out of those practices, her uniform pristine, her hair perfect, her crew trailing like shadows. That was her window. Monday morning, Chloe walked into Lincoln Heights with a new edge. Her hoodie was clean, the blue tint in her braids barely visible. But her posture had shifted, shoulders back, steps sure. She kept her eyes down in the halls, playing the part, but her mind was a machine, cataloging everything. Olivia's crew passed her at lunch, Lauren snapping a photo of Chloe's tray as Sophie accidentally bumped it, spilling milk across the table. "Oops," Sophie said, smirking. Chloe mopped it up, silent, her hands steady. After school, she slipped into the gym, blending into the bleachers as the cheer squad practiced. Olivia led the routine, her voice barking commands, her flips flawless. Lauren filmed for their socials. Emily adjusted pom-poms. Sophie stretched nearby. Chloe watched, her backpack heavy with a small spray bottle of her compound. Colorless, odorless, ready. She needed a way in, a delivery method. That night, she sat in the lab, the cheer flyer pinned to a corkboard. She remembered Olivia's post about lighting up the field, a halftime show with sparklers, a big deal for the squad. Chloe's eyes lit up. The cheer uniforms hung in the locker room before games, prepped by freshman minions. If she could miss the compound onto Olivia's uniform, hers and her crew's, it'd soak in, react with their sweat under the lights, and bloom blue in front of the whole school. She tested it on an old shirt, spraying a fine layer, then dousing it with water. Within minutes, the fabric turned a vivid electric blue, the color spreading like ink. She grinned, her heart racing. "You wanted a spotlight, Olivia," she muttered, capping the bottle. "You're getting one." Chloe leaned back, her plan locking into place. 5 days to execute. 5 days to turn Olivia's game into her reckoning. She'd kept her promise to Tracy. No fists, no fights, but this was war, and Chloe was done losing. The week crawled by at Lincoln Heights High, each day a test of Chloe Bennett's patience. She moved through the halls with her head down, her hoodie a shield, the faint blue tint in her braids a quiet taunt to Olivia Harper's crew. They didn't let up. Lauren Mitchell posted her latest photo with a caption calling Chloe Smurf reject. Emily Carter tripped her in the cafeteria. Sophie Evans whispered freak as they passed in gym. Chloe took it all, her face blank, her hands steady, her mind locked on Friday night's football game. The halftime show was coming, and with it, her moment. She'd spent every evening in her garage lab, perfecting the plan. The compound was ready, a clear, odorless liquid in a small spray bottle or tucked into her backpack. It reacted with sweat and water, blooming into a vivid blue that clung to skin and fabric for days. Harmless, temporary, but impossible to ignore. She'd tested it again Wednesday night, spraying it on an old towel, then splashing it with water. The blue erupted, bright and bold, exactly as she'd designed. Tracy Bennett had watched from the doorway, her arms crossed, her voice low. "You're sure this washes out?" she'd asked. 7 days, tops, Chloe had said, capping the bottle. No damage, just drama. Tracy nodded, a flicker of pride in her eyes. Make it count. Thursday after school, Chloe slipped into the gym during cheer practice. The squad was mid-routine. Olivia barking orders from the center, her blonde ponytail whipping as she flipped. Lauren filmed from the sidelines, Emily adjusted props, Sophie stretched nearby. Chloe sat in the bleachers, her backpack at her feet, her eyes on the freshmen scurrying around with water bottles and towels. Olivia's minions, eager to please. She spotted the cheer uniforms hanging on a rack near the locker room entrance. Red and gold fabric glinting under the lights. That was her target. She waited until practice ended, the squad filing out, their chatter loud and careless. Olivia lingered, adjusting her hair in a mirror, while the freshmen tidied up. Chloe moved fast, her steps silent, her hoodie blending into the shadows. She ducked behind the rack, pulling the spray bottle from her bag. The compound hissed as she misted it over Olivia's uniform, then Lauren's, Emily's, and Sophie's light, even coats, invisible to the eye. She finished in seconds, slipping back to the bleachers as a freshman returned with a clipboard. No one saw, no one suspected. Friday night arrived, the air crisp and electric, at Lincoln Heights Football Stadium. The stands roared with red and gold, the crowd buzzing for the game against crosstown rivals. Chloe sat near the top, her hoodie zipped, her phone in hand. She'd told Tracy she'd be late. Needed to see this through. The first half dragged, the score tied, but all Chloe cared about was halftime. The whistle blew, and the cheer squad took the field, Olivia leading them out, her uniform pristine, her smile wide. Lauren, Emily, and Sophie followed, pom-poms flashing, sparklers in hand for their big finale. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Give it up for Lincoln Heights cheer team lighting up the night." The crowd cheered, phones rising to record, the lights dimming for effect. Chloe leaned forward, her pulse steady. The routine started, sharp kicks, tight spins, Olivia's voice calling the counts. Sweat beaded on their foreheads under the stadium lights. The October air cool, but not enough to stop it. 5 minutes in, Chloe saw the first hint, a faint blue sheen on Sophie's arms as she tossed her pom-pom. Then Emily's legs, a subtle tint creeping up from her knees. Lauren's hands glowed as she waved her sparklers, the blue spreading like ink. The crowd murmured, heads tilting, fingers pointing. Olivia flipped into a cartwheel, landing with a flourish, oblivious as her neck turned a soft cerulean. The squad lined up for the finale. Sparklers raised, a synchronized spin. Chloe held her breath. They dipped low, then leaped, and the water bottles the freshmen had sprayed them with earlier, part of the dramatic effect, hit their skin. The compound ignited. Blue exploded across them, vivid and undeniable. Olivia's face, arms, legs, electric blue under the lights. Lauren's uniform streaked, her hands glowing as she dropped her sparkler. Emily shrieked, her thighs a neon mess, while Sophie froze, her arms a canvas of color. The crowd gasped, then laughed, a wave of sound crashing over the field. Phones zoomed in, flashes popping, the announcer stumbling over his words. Looks like a colorful twist tonight. Olivia spun, her smile faltering as she caught her reflection in a sideline camera screen. What the? She yelled, rubbing her face, the blue smearing brighter with every touch. Lauren clutched her phone, her screen showing her own blue hands, her voice rising in panic. My followers are seeing this. Emily bolted for the sidelines, her legs a blur of color, while Sophie stood dumbstruck, her sparklers fizzing out in the grass. The stands erupted, laughter, cheers, boos mixing into chaos. They're Smurfs, a kid shouted, setting off a chant. Smurf squad, Smurf squad. Olivia's face twisted, her scream cutting through the noise. Turn off the cameras, she yelled, but it was too late. Every phone was live, every second streaming. Chloe sat back, her lips curling into a faint smile, her fingers tapping a text to Tracy. It worked. Within minutes, the squad fled the field, Olivia shoving past a freshman who dared to laugh. The game resumed, but no one cared about football. Social media lit up, hashtags exploding, blue cheer, Lincoln Smurfs, videos spread, edits popping up with cartoon filters, the squad's perfect image shattering in real time. Chloe scrolled through it all, her heart steady, her plan a perfect hit. Saturday morning, the fallout was everywhere. Chloe sat at a diner across from the school, sipping coffee, her phone buzzing with notifications. Olivia's Instagram was locked, Lauren's follower count dropping, Emily's latest post drowned in blue emoji comments. Sophie had gone silent, her profile blank. The school's group chat was a war zone, kids laughing, others speculating, a few calling it karma for Hannah. Chloe flipped to a video from the night before, the best angle yet. Olivia's face mid-scream, blue as the sky, her crew scrambling behind her. The caption read, "Guess who's not untouchable now?" She saved it, her mind already shifting. The blue would fade, but the damage was done. Olivia's reign was cracking, and Chloe had struck the first blow. She paid for her coffee and walked home, the spray bottle still in her backpack, half full. Tracy was in the kitchen when she got there, her laptop open to a news clip of the halftime chaos. You see this? Tracy asked, her tone dry. Yup, Chloe said, dropping her bag. They wanted to paint me blue. I just returned the favor. Tracy shook her head, a grin tugging at her lips. Your trouble, you know that? Only when they ask for it, Chloe said, grabbing a soda from the fridge. She'd kept her promise. No fists, no fights. But this was better. Olivia thought she'd humiliated Chloe, thought she'd won. Now the whole town knew her crown was painted blue, and Chloe wasn't done yet. Monday morning at Lincoln Heights. High crackled with tension, the air thick with whispers and stifled laughs. Chloe Bennett walked through the front doors, her hoodie swapped for a plain black jacket, her braids tied back, the last traces of blue dye barely visible. The halftime show had turned Olivia Harper and her crew into a viral joke. Blue cheer trending, memes flooding every group chat. their perfect cheer uniforms now a punchline. Chloe kept her head down, her steps quiet, but her eyes scanned the halls, sharp and ready. The fallout was immediate. Olivia's locker was plastered with blue stickers. Sophie's gym bag had been dyed with marker. Lauren's latest post drowned in comments like Smurf Queen. Emily had tried covering her still faint blue arms with long sleeves, but the damage was done. The cheer squad's throne in the cafeteria sat empty, freshmen reclaiming the space with nervous giggles. Olivia's reign was wobbling, and everyone knew it, except Olivia. Chloe felt the shift all day. Kids who'd ignored her nodded now. Some even smiled. In chemistry, Ethan, the junior who'd warned her about Olivia's power, slid into the seat next to her. "You see the videos?" he asked, pushing up his glasses, his voice low. "They're calling it the Blue Apocalypse." "Yeah," Chloe said, her tone even, her pencil tapping her notebook. "Guess they underestimated the new girl." Ethan grinned, a rare sight. Understatement of the year. By lunch, the storm broke. Chloe sat alone at her usual corner table, picking at a sandwich, when the double doors to the cafeteria swung open. Olivia stormed in, her blonde hair pulled tight, her cheer uniform replaced with a gray sweatshirt that couldn't hide the faint blue tint on her neck. Lauren, Emily, and Sophie trailed her, their faces a mix of fury and shame, their skin still glowing faintly under layers of makeup that only made it worse. The room hushed, forks pausing, phones lifting. "You!" Olivia shouted, her voice slicing through the silence, her finger jabbing at Chloe. She marched across the cafeteria, her crew fanning out behind her, their steps heavy with purpose. Kids scrambled out of the way, the air electric with anticipation. Olivia slammed her hands on Chloe's table, the tray rattling, her blue-tinged face twisted with rage. "You did this to us." Chloe looked up, her expression blank, her sandwich halfway to her mouth. "Did what?" she asked, her voice soft, deliberate, a spark flickering in her dark eyes. "Don't play dumb," Lauren snapped, stepping closer, her phone clutched like a weapon. "We're blue because of you. Fix it or you're done." Emily leaned in, her sleeves slipping to reveal a neon streak. "You ruined us," she hissed, her voice shaking. Sophie cracked her knuckles, her smirk gone, her eyes narrow. Chloe set her sandwich down, wiping her hands on a napkin, her movements slow. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her tone steady, her shoulders hunching slightly, a mask she'd worn too long to drop yet. Olivia's laugh was sharp, desperate. "Oh, you're good," she said, grabbing Chloe's water bottle from the tray. She twisted the cap off and dumped it over Chloe's head, the cold splash soaking her jacket, dripping down her face. The cafeteria gasped, a collective jolt, phones zooming in. "Maybe that'll jog your memory," Olivia said, tossing the empty bottle aside. "Get up. You're coming with us until you undo this." Chloe sat there, water beading on her lashes, her hands resting on the table. She looked small, startled, the new girl they'd broken before. Olivia smirked, emboldened, and grabbed Chloe's arm, yanking her to her feet. "Move!" she barked, shoving her hard. Chloe stumbled, her sneakers slipping on the wet floor, and Sophie stepped in, gripping her other arm. "Not so tough now, huh?" Sophie said, her voice low, her fingers digging in. Emily circled, her phone out, filming again. "Let's see her cry this time." The crowd pressed closer, some kids whispering, others silent, no one stepping in. Chloe's head dipped, her voice a murmur. "I tried to keep it quiet, Mom," she said, just loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. Then her posture shifted, shoulders rolling back, feet planting wide, her eyes lifting with a calm, cold focus that stopped Olivia mid-step. "Show's over," Chloe said, her voice clear, cutting the tension like a blade. Olivia recovered fast, her hand swinging to slap Chloe's face. In one fluid move, Chloe caught her wrist, twisted it down, and used Olivia's momentum to flip her onto the table. Olivia landed with a crash, trays flying, her sweatshirt tangling as she sprawled across the wood. The room erupted. Shouts, gasps, chairs scraping back. Lauren charged, her phone dropping as she swung a wild punch. Chloe sidestepped, her foot extending just enough to trip Lauren into a stumble, her knees hitting the floor with a thud. Emily shrieked, lunging with a tray, but Chloe deflected it with her forearm, then swept Emily's legs from under her. She fell, sliding into a puddle of spilled juice, her sleeves riding up to show more blue. Sophie came last, fists up, her face a snarl. Chloe ducked her swing, pivoted behind her, and pushed her forward, letting Sophie's own force send her crashing into a chair. The whole thing took 12 seconds. 4 girls down, no punches thrown, just precision and control. The cafeteria froze, a sea of wide eyes and raised phones, the silence deafening. Olivia scrambled up, her hair a mess, her face flushed beneath the blue. "I'll kill you!" she screamed, lunging again. But Chloe caught her arm, locking it in a judo hold that dropped Olivia to her knees with a yelp. "I could hurt you," Chloe said, her voice low, steady. "But I don't need to. You've done enough to yourself." She released Olivia, stepping back, her hands open and visible. The crowd parted as Principal Davis pushed through, his tie askew, his face red. "What's going on here?" he bellowed, his eyes darting between Chloe, calm and soaked, and the 4 girls sprawled in chaos. "She attacked us!" Olivia shrieked, clutching her wrist, tears streaking her blue cheeks. "She's insane!" Davis turned to Chloe, his brow furrowing. "Explain yourself, Bennett." "They came at me," Chloe said, her voice even, water dripping from her chin. "I defended myself, sir, that's all." "She's lying," Emily wailed, struggling to her feet, juice staining her shirt. Lauren grabbed her phone, her hand shaking, while Sophie glared, rubbing her elbow. Davis raised a hand, silencing them. "My office. All of you. Now." He pointed, his voice a growl, and the 5 marched out, the crowd buzzing in their wake. Whispers flew. "Did you see that? She didn't even hit them. Olivia's done." In Davis's office, Chloe sat across from him, her jacket dripping onto the floor, her posture relaxed. Olivia and her crew huddled in the hall with Vice Principal Carter, Emily's mom, their voices shrill through the glass. Davis steepled his fingers, his gray eyes studying Chloe. "That was no ordinary self-defense," he said, his tone clipped. "Where'd you learn moves like that?" "My mom's army," Chloe said, meeting his gaze. "She taught me judo when I was 9, for protection, not fighting." Davis leaned back, exhaling. "And the blue skin? Coincidence?" Chloe's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. I wouldn't know, sir." He tapped a file on his desk, his voice softening. "I've got reports, years of complaints about Harper and her friends. Nothing stuck. Their parents always stepped in." He paused, his jaw tight. "My niece left this school because of them. I couldn't do a thing." Chloe nodded, silent, her eyes steady. Davis sighed. "You're getting a warning for fighting, policy, but videos show they attacked first. They're suspended, effective, today." Outside, Olivia's mom stormed in, her heels clicking, her voice rising. "Expel her," she demanded, pointing at Chloe. Davis stood, his tone firm. "I've got footage, Mrs. Harper. Your daughter started it. We're done here." Chloe left the office, the halls alive with cheers as she passed. Olivia's empire was dust, and Chloe had lit the match. 3 months after the cafeteria showdown, Lincoln Heights High felt different. Chloe Bennett walked through the halls, her black jacket swapped for a red school hoodie, her braids neatly redone, free of any blue tint. The whispers had faded, replaced by nods and smiles from kids who'd once ignored her. The school wasn't perfect, but the air was lighter, the shadows of Olivia Harper's reign shrinking under a new kind of light. Olivia was gone, transferred to a private academy after her suspension, her family's influence no match for the viral videos and Principal Davis's firm stance. Lauren Mitchell kept a low profile, her social media quiet, her follower count a ghost of its former glory. Emily Carter dropped cheer, focusing on art class instead, her councilwoman mom too embarrassed to intervene. Sophie Evans stayed, but her swagger was gone. She sat alone at lunch, her head down, a mirror of the kids she'd once targeted. Chloe didn't gloat. She'd won, but the real victory wasn't in their fall. It was in what came after. A week after the incident, a sophomore named Mia approached her at her locker, her voice shy. "Can you teach me how you did that flip thing?" she had asked, twisting her hands. "My brother picks on me, and I just want to feel strong." Others joined, Ethan from chemistry, a freshman named Jake, even a quiet girl named Hannah who'd returned after Olivia left. It started small. Saturday mornings in the school gym, Chloe showing basic judo moves, how to break a hold, how to redirect a push, how to stand tall. Principal Davis caught wind and made it official, a self-defense club, co-led with Coach Miller, open to anyone. 30 kids showed up the first day, their faces eager, their questions piling up. "It's not about fighting," Chloe told them, her voice steady as they practiced blocks. "It's about knowing you can walk away." The club grew, spilling into after-school sessions, a mix of freshmen and seniors learning side by side. Ethan rigged a chemistry demo for fun, harmless color sprays to cheer them on, turning the gym into a rainbow of laughter. By spring, the yearbook staff picked blue as the prom theme, a playful nod to the blue apocalypse that had flipped the school upside down. One afternoon, Tracy Bennett picked Chloe up in her truck, her army jacket slung over the seat. "Heard your club's a hit," she said, her grin wide. "You're a teacher now, huh?" "Guess so," Chloe said, tossing her backpack in. "Feels better than hiding." Tracy nodded, pulling out of the lot. "You didn't just stand up, you lifted them up too." Chloe looked back at the school, its red and gold banners fluttering. Olivia had ruled by fear. Chloe changed it with strength, not fists, but lessons. Her legacy wasn't blue dye or a flip table. It was a school where kids like Mia could stand tall, and that was enough.